Oh, God, no. Well, if you saw my last cheap supercar video, I guess you would know that Ferrari probably wouldn't be too happy about that, and so they buried me, so it seems. Of course, the coffin's red, too. Jesus. But, I am victorious. You want to know why? Because I still have the keys. Oh, yeah. I am lost now, though, so if you want to help me find my way home, you can support our merch. Links in the description down below if you want to check that out. Get yourself a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, really good designs. But yeah, I guess I got to try to find my way home now. Cool. And today's video was sponsored by Brilliant.org, which is one of the best ways to learn math, data science, and computer science interactively online. We will get into that a bit more later, but for now, just know that Brilliant, I love you, dog. But all jokes aside, Chevy has now given me the keys to their Z06 for a few days, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to really dive in and talk about things I like, talk about things I don't like, things I absolutely adore. But first things first, cold start. Good to be back in the C8. The last time I drove one of these, I made a video where I drove it all the way across the country to Chicago. Well, more like halfway across the country. And if you haven't seen that video, it'll be in the pop-up banner like right here, I think. So there's not gonna be any cross-country road going in this Z06. I only have it for a few days, but I am gonna be doing quite a bit of red lighting. But first, let's talk about the design for a little bit. Something I kind of reflected on in my C8 Stingray video is that these cars get so much attention. Like, this thing is a Chevy. Granted, it's a damn good looking Chevy, but despite there being thousands of C8s on the road already, people will look at this thing and stare at it like it's the first time they've ever seen a car before. And to the untrained eye, you may think there's essentially zero aesthetic differences between the standard Stingray and the Z06 model, but there's actually quite a bit. The first difference being the center exit exhaust. The standard Stingray uses separated pairs of dual exhaust tips, while the Z06 uses a center quad exhaust system. And some people may think this is an aesthetic callback to the previous generations of Corvette, but no, this is a purely technical choice to get the most optimal sound. According to GM, designing their exhaust this way allowed them to get the most of the best sound frequencies to accommodate the high revving flat plane crank engine. They essentially designed this exhaust to cancel a lot of the noises from the first half of the firing order and project the sounds from the other half of the firing order of the engine, giving you that nice, sweet tone. And the overall chassis of the Z06 is noticeably different than the standard C8 as well. It's about 3.6 inches wider, and you can tell that the most when you're looking at it from the front. The front fascia is much larger because you've got all these extra openings for aerodynamics and cooling. But if you're looking at this car from the side, usually the biggest tell is this black side marker separating the door from this air intake right here. On the standard C8 Stingray model, it's kind of got this fin shape, whereas on the Z06, we've got this Y-shaped black side marker. And so when you've come to learn all of these differences between the Z06 and the Stingray, you can tell it's pretty noticeably different, but to the untrained eye, it's still pretty subtle. The interior has kind of always been a mixed bag for me, and I certainly love the way it looks. In fact, I really love the way it looks, but I feel like when actually driving the car with someone in the passenger seat, you kind of have an isolated experience, and that's because of the way the center console is laid out. It kind of feels like you have two first-class plane seats positioned next to each other, so it kind of just provides for a lack of intimacy between you and whoever's in the passenger seat next to you. Not to mention, it can kind of be uncomfortable for bigger guys. The few bigger guys that I've had in the car, it hasn't been the best passenger experience for them. But that's mostly where my cons for the interior end. The Z06 has 911-like amenities when it comes to the daily driver creature comforts in this car. You've got heated and cooled seats, you've got a heated steering wheel, you've got a decent-sized touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto support, you've got a wireless charger for your smartphone, you've got a pretty reasonable amount of storage space throughout the interior. This might be one of the most practical and dailyable supercars ever made. Now, it definitely doesn't have Pagani levels of build quality, and there are certain elements in the interior that are definitely a testament to that, like this turn signal stock, right? Like, I've had to deal with this turn signal stock with a handful of GM cars I've driven this year, high-end ones like the CT5E Blackwing, and I just hate it. It is so mushy and just like, I hate it every time I have to use it, which is a lot because I'm driving and actually using my turn signals. But for a brand known for making the Chevy Bolt and the Chevy Cruze, which are perfectly fine cars for the price, by the way, I'm overall really impressed with this interior. And when you package that in with the supercar levels of performance, this is kind of like a unicorn car. Look, I've sat in a Ferrari 458, and it only took me 3 minutes to come to the conclusion that I would hate to sit in that thing in traffic in pretty much any scenario like that. But as you've seen in my previous C8 video, I feel the complete opposite way about these cars. I drove nearly 3,000 miles on a C8 in 1 week. It's one of the most practical, dailyable sports cars and supercars ever made. It's really good. Look, man, we gotta talk about something. We gotta talk about why you're not using our sponsor, Brilliant.org. Brilliant.org is the best way to learn the maths and the computer sciences and engineerings interactively. Brilliant has a beautifully designed website with thousands of lessons that can teach you the basics of math, AI, data science, neural networks, and much more. And not just the basics, you can do the more advanced stuff too when you get to that level. I love Brilliant.org because I'm not brilliant, but thanks to Brilliant, I can take fun engineering lessons that allows me to learn more about the stuff I try to tell you about. And with my busy schedule, Brilliant fits perfectly into my day, like any man and a Porsche 911. It's one of the most effective and personable ways to learn. Trust me, dog. The Porsche GT3 having a 6-cylinder engine isn't what makes the car cool. It's about how that flat 6 engine makes you feel, just like the knowledge. It ain't about getting the knowledge, it's about how having the knowledge makes you feel. Knowledge. You want to achieve your goals, you want to be the best student you can be, you want to have the biggest of brains, well, get Brilliant. You can try it for free for a full 30 days using my special link in the description below, or just visit brilliant.org/carswithmiles. And the first 200 people to sign up using that link will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Do it now. Don't be like me and not be brilliant, even though I'm trying to get brilliant through brilliant.org. Go to brilliant.org right now. Now, back to the video. So this is my first time getting to drive the Z06 extensively, and I've definitely changed my mind on a few things since I drove it last time in California, but overall this car is a boatload of fun, and that mainly comes down to the noises, as you would imagine. Chevy spent 6 or 7 years developing the engine for the Z06, and man, that is beyond apparent. There's so many things you notice about the noises with this car when playing with it in track mode, specifically when everything is pretty much dialed up to the max. This engine just has so much character. Every upshift and downshift in this car sounds like a freaking whip crack, and I'm not sure if the camera or the audio in the camera will 100% be able to capture this, but just take a listen. Also, the pops and burbles that are produced by the engine are 100% authentic. Every pop and bang you hear on a downshift or an upshift never sounds exactly the same as the one that came before it. And that's how you know that it isn't some programmed, inauthentic burble tune. It's 100% natural. And it's little things like that that really add to the character of the exhaust, you know? And then the volume and tone of the exhaust. It's pretty wild to me that GM essentially went with a straight pipe setup for this system. There are tiny little mufflers on the exhaust, but for the most part, there's more or less zero restrictions on this setup. And GM reps have basically claimed that they believe they've developed the best version of an exhaust system for this car, and that there's no point in going for an aftermarket system for the Z06, which really gets me curious as to how aftermarket companies can essentially make it their mission to have an exhaust that sounds even louder and crazier than the stock setup, which is already like a 9 out of 10. Really 10 out of 10, honestly, as far as like the sound experience goes. If you watched my last short Z06 video, Jesse, the owner of his Z06, said it best. The best thing about this exhaust system is that even at low speeds, at 30 miles an hour, right now I'm at 45. And it sounds like this. You don't really need to ring it out and be hammering on the throttle all the time to get a nice, sweet sound out of the system. It's so good because it's so de-restricted already, like I said. straight piping it would really just be cutting tiny little mufflers off, which I feel like wouldn't grant you that much extra sound. A lot of people feel as though GM should have stuck with a more traditional General Motors V8 with a lot of low-end grumble and growl. I'm personally a big fan of this change because not everyone's going to be able to afford a brand new Ferrari or even an older 458, especially when it comes to maintaining one. But the Z06 will offer a good chunk of that emotional experience for less money and come without all of the headaches of owning a foreign exotic supercar. Coming from cars like the Nissan Z Nismo or the Jaguar F-Type, those are other cars that I've been driving lately. The Z06 does not feel small. It feels pretty big despite the limited cabin space you've got in the car. This is not a supercar. This is a super GT that can keep up with some of the very best supercars out there on the track. The Porsche GT3, the Lamborghini Aventador, the Ferrari 812. These are all cars that are comparable in terms of size and performance on a track. But unlike all of those cars, the Z06 has a frunk. The Z06 has a trunk. It has reasonable storage space on the interior. It has enough storage to carry groceries or travel luggage for two. The Z06 is really getting you the best of both worlds. The transmission in this Z06 feels slightly different to me than in the Stingray, and I'm pretty sure GM made some mild tweaks to the transmission to accommodate this new LT6 motor, but it's fundamentally the same transmission. It just feels a bit more race car-like to me, if that makes any sense. It doesn't feel really any faster or quicker to respond, but it also doesn't feel as dull and uneventful as the Stingray felt when kind of like highway cruising. The way the chassis responds to every gear change feels like an event compared to the Stingray. But I will say, after spending some more time with these paddle shifters, they're not really my favorite after comparing them to some other cars I've been in recently. The carbon fiber is sick and it feels nice to touch, but the act of shifting gears itself just feels a bit weightless, and I kind of wish there was a bit more feeling of snap or spring action to get that shift, or just a sense of resistance to get that shift press. It'd make using this car in manual mode be even more fun than it already is. Cars like this make me sad because I think with this LT6 motor, we've nearly reached the pinnacle of internal combustion engineering. This is the most powerful naturally aspirated V8 ever with 670 horsepower, and with the world of cars moving to electric, this is likely going to be the last Corvette ever powered by a V8 or an internal combustion engine, period. We're steadily approaching the end of the road for cars like this, and that is nothing short of sad. The thing that I love the most about this car is that, yes, this is a 670 horsepower car. That is a lot of power for something like this. But when you're doing everyday driving, it doesn't feel nearly as fast as like a BMW M5 Competition or a McLaren 720S or a Ferrari F8 or all these turbocharged V8 motors that just give you that instantaneous push and torque. It kind of reminds me why I love naturally aspirated motors so much, because you have to earn the power. When you're going from 0 to 30 or 0 to 60, it doesn't feel like an insanely visceral experience in terms of the power or acceleration. But when you're already going like 90 to 100 miles an hour in Mexico, of course, and you're like going down curvy roads and having to manage that power and being able to go even faster, that's when you're really feeling that 670 horsepower. It's 670 horsepower that you have to earn. Unlike all these turbocharged V8 cars that you have now, you have to earn the horsepower. And that's what I love about the Z06. It's truly a high-performance vehicle in that sense. If you spent 20 minutes driving in like a Ferrari 488 and then hopped in this immediately after, those are two V8 cars with very similar amounts of power. But the Ferrari is going to feel a lot faster, especially way lower down in the torque range. But man, this car is just so much more satisfying when you get to ring it out and really earn that power, you know? This car is truly a masterclass of engineering by Chevy. They were able to take a supercar experience and combine that with all the daily driver amenities, mag ride, a modern infotainment, all the things you need to have a super usable supercar. So hats off to them. I'm honestly not sure when I'll be able to drive this epic GT again, but The E-Ray just came out not too long ago, so hopefully I can get some seat time in that soon, maybe before the end of the year, maybe not, we'll see. But until then, be sure to subscribe to the channel for future content like this and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Merch, link down below in the description if you want to check that out and support the channel as well. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. More sporty stuff coming soon. Now I'm gonna go drive this thing some more. Yeah, I'm gonna go drive this thing some more. Bye.